Hello, Planet Earth. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We're at Decay, my BFF Jill 730.
My BFF Jill 730.
I'm Preston L. Young, wishing you warm salutations and congratulations as always. You've made your way to the Buffington Post.
You are invited!
Today I'll be taking a break from Buffy because it's time to talk about HBO's WestWorld Season 1, Episode 8. It's Trace Decay. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go.
The time has come!
Open up the sky. This mess is getting high. It's windy and our family needs a ride. I know we'll be just fine when we learn to love the ride. I know we'll be fine when we learn to love the ride. I know we'll be just fine when we learn to love the ride.
I want to start off by saying that if you're planning to watch Netflix's The Crown, or if you already are, I would really encourage you to try and figure out who in the royal family is an android, because it makes the show a lot more fun. And I've found myself doing that with everything I'm watching. I'm like, oh, I'll bet they're a robot. So, yay, WestWorld is letting other television be a lot more fun.
I hope you can see this because I'm doing it as hard as I can.
So, Trace Decay is an enigma of an episode because all season long it's been like question, 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 and then episode 8 comes along and it's like, would you like some answers? And yeah, we would. And it was just like, here, have the answers. So the dual timeline theory is looking more and more like it's not a theory, which I guess is great, but at the same time it's like, really? I thought they were going to throw us for this great big loop, but really, I am enjoying it. The idea that William may have gone back to Westworld this whole time trying to like live out this fantasy life, and he ignored his home life because he was like wrapped up in Westworld. It's really fascinating. The idea that his family would really resent him, and you know, his wife would even kill herself over this this kind of not being present in his actual life. It's really fascinating. And if the Man in Black is in fact William, then it would make sense, because again we get the British host who like gave William his orientation in this episode. She's back as part of like Wyatt's crew, and in many ways it's starting to feel like the whole Wyatt story is actually almost specifically manufactured for the Man in Black. I mean, I know that's a bit of a stretch, but it all seems to be kind of about him, and we have had clues throughout the season so far that, you know, the park caters to the individual guests' wants and desires for their particular like narrative, if you will. And so that might be the case. I'm not like gonna put any money on it, but I think that would be fascinating if this entire Wyatt narrative were actually specifically for this particular guest. I don't know. It's pretty cool. And we leave Teddy and the Man in Black in this really weird space with like the Ghost Nation. Are they the Ghost Nation or the natives who paint themselves white? Ghost Nation. I don't know. It's still kind of like, what exactly is Ghost Nation? But hello, the Minotaur guy. And let me say, the whole like Minotaur looking dude, that scene, like the fight scene, I did not like it. It looked poorly shot. It looked like some serious second unit shit, and I didn't really like it. It was too jumpy. Like the action didn't look good at all. It was not my favorite. It was poorly constructed in my opinion. But yeah, we leave them with this whole like, Wyatt wants you back, Teddy, and oh, Wyatt. So I don't really know where they're gonna go with this. Again, like the more westerny type stuff doesn't really get me the way that the behind the scenes futuristic stuff does. So I don't know, like at the end of the day it's just a narrative and they're just robots, and unless we raise the stakes and make sure that these android hosts can actually hurt people, then I ain't really about it. Although we did have Teddy in this episode. He was kind of he seems to be using this reverie system to like wake himself up a little bit, but again, we don't know how much they're actually waking up. So, like, that's all neat, and it seemed like he could actually hurt the Man in Black. And that's because, you know, he like knocked him out and tied him up and all this extra. So I really don't know what they're gonna do with this whole like Teddy situation. Like, I've heard theories that Teddy, like, is a variation on William, like, he is modeled after William, like, his whole story, like, the way that they meet and everything else, but there's so many damn theories about this show, it's hard to, like, ignore or pay attention to many of them, so that's a whole thing.
Is it difficult or time-consuming?
So we find out in this episode, well, Bernard finds out pretty much that he's an android, you know, and I meant to say it in my last episode review, in episode 7, like, we see Bernard and he's asking the androids, like, he always asks them, have you ever questioned the nature of your reality? And it's like, you know, Bernard, maybe you should have been asking yourself that question, because now he is questioning the nature of his own reality.
How am I not myself?
How am I not myself? How am I not myself?
And it seems like he just never thought to before, which it's kind of interesting when you think about the programming of the androids and are they allowed to kind of question the nature of their own reality. But here, Bernard is just having like an existential meltdown, and sure, they erase all of the evidence of Teresa, but Stubbs, who I guess is human, right? Yeah, Stubbs is saying, hey, like, I know you and Teresa were in this relationship, are you okay? And Bernard, like, doesn't remember, and so Stubbs is either going to realize that Bernard is a robot, or more likely he's going to suspect foul play and that Bernard's just a human and that he wanted to get rid of Teresa, maybe over some like lover's quarrel or whatnot, but Bernard better watch his back because Stubbs is definitely looking at him.
That nigga gonna pay what he owe.
Now we also see in this episode that sure enough, Bernard was the one who like got Elsie, and the thing is, like, if he was just on the phone with Elsie, is that possible? But, I mean, Bernard's an android, and my whole thing is like, are we sure that there's only one Bernard? Like, who's to say that Bernard didn't kind of like wake himself up at some point, make another Bernard because he knew that he wasn't, you know, himself and that he was being controlled by Ford? What if he created another android that is himself, but more accurately himself? And that's why we have like the costume changes, you know, like there's one Bernard costume in episodes and then there's another and they keep going back and forth. So maybe Bernard just like made himself another self, or maybe Ford manufactured more than one Bernard. But I'm thinking that Bernard built himself another self, and he is getting Elsie to kind of help him to rise up against Ford. Make sense? Maybe. But I'm definitely not unconvinced that there's only one Bernard, because again, they're androids and you can just make another one, right?
Right.
And so while we saw him choking Elsie out, I don't think that she's dead. I do think that that Bernard knows he's being lied to and used and controlled very much in the same way that Maeve does, and I'm thinking that he's getting Elsie to assist him in kind of regaining, or more accurately, I guess, gaining for the first time, control over his own reality. Another thing with the dual timeline issue in this episode is the fact that, of course, we've got Dolores, and she is flipping in and out of time and memories, and just like with Maeve, she is physically reliving her memories. Felix in this episode tells Maeve that what she's experiencing as far as remembering things is that her memory is perfect and she doesn't remember things the way that humans do, and that she is in fact kind of reliving them physically in time and space.
It's been a long time.
And so that's really interesting. We get in this episode, we find out that what happened to Maeve is that the Man in Black, whomever he may be, he broke her. He went so far against what her programming was there for that basically he broke her, and her programming couldn't cope with what had happened to her, you know, daughter, if you will. And so the idea that they have to come into something that is completely against their programming, that actually does not compute. It's really fascinating, and I'm wondering if that's what happened to Dolores like 30 years ago. Because again, I think that Dolores has been more or less awakened for longer than we're led to believe, and I do think that she has almost consciously decided not to show that she is awake. And again, we have in this episode Ford talking to Bernard about how consciousness like isn't even a thing. He's like, consciousness is kind of basically an illusion. But the way that he wants to talk about it, I mean, whether it's AI consciousness or physical biochemical consciousness, he wants to say that it doesn't exist, but either way, it exists to the conscious individual. And so that's all pretty confusing, and I don't know exactly what we're supposed to think, but I do still think that Arnold created Ford, and Ford rose up against Arnold, and that's why he had to kill Arnold, was because either Arnold wanted to give the other androids everything that he gave to Ford, or that he may have seen that what he gave Ford was really threatening. I don't know. We'll find out in the next couple episodes, hopefully. But they just laid out so much stuff in this episode. We see that that Ford kind of corrected Maeve's crazy, but he didn't really correct it. He seemed to just pacify her, and that's really crazy because I mean, I just don't know what they're gonna do with Maeve. I will say this though, I think that when we have at the end of the episode the hazmat guys, the shades coming in to collect Maeve, she looks almost resigned. She looks like she's got a plan. And my theory about the shades, the hazmat guys, is that they may well just be hosts that are programmed to read as human, like the host programmed to be read as human that was killed by Clementine. If what we're given to believe is that there really is no distinction between human and android, then why wouldn't the people who work behind the scenes in WestWorld be androids, especially the butchers? Because on the one hand, I can see them not wanting to be contaminated by any like biological materials or fluids when they go and collect them and do the butchering and whatnot. And that would be a reason to wear the hazmat suits. But another reason to wear the hazmat suits is that the shades, as they're called, are written into the narrative. They're in the narrative. And so if the hosts are constantly being reset and reassigned to different narratives and programs, then it would only make sense if your workforce behind the scenes is also android, you would want to completely cover them up in these crazy suits so that they wouldn't recognize them, because maybe Felix used to like be a host in the park if he is an android. And that's what's crazy. Like the show is making me question like who's an android, who's not, and I'm totally not above thinking that the people behind the scenes who just kind of exist in their own kind of loops are in fact android workers, you know? And so I think that might be what we're seeing. If that is what we're seeing, then when the hazmat guys come in, I'm predicting that in episode 9, if Maeve has figured out that they are in fact androids, that she can just narrate their narrative for them and she can control them, maybe. I mean, maybe she will want to be taken down into the bay and, you know, meet with the other androids and try and wake them up, maybe even from cold storage. I'm wondering if Maeve's adjustments to her own programming would allow her to wake herself up after she is like decommissioned and put down into cold storage. That remains to be seen, but from the preview next week, we do see that she's like down in the bay and that she comes into contact with Bernard, and when that happens, it's quite possible that she can recognize that Bernard is in fact an android, and they might come together to work toward a seemingly common goal. But again, Maeve is so like off the territory that she is like, she's unpredictable at this point, which I really like.
Why don't we just load her up like one of those little horses?
And I really like that Maeve remembers this daughter and this incident that happened to her or at least that she existed. And at first she wants to know what happened to this girl, but then she's like, no, it's just another story. It's nothing. It doesn't really mean anything. And on the one hand, it's really exciting that Maeve is seeing beyond the emotions that she's been given. She feels this emotional connection to this daughter that she doesn't even know, just as she felt this emotional connection to Clementine, who like wasn't awake, if you will. But she looks beyond that. She says, I should be tied to these emotions because that's in my programming, and I want to look to the future rather than digging up the past. And that's really, really lovely, but I'm not entirely sure that her past won't dictate her future decisions, which, again, it's really cool. I've really enjoyed what we've had with Maeve all season. Like, this character has been the most transformative, I feel, aside from probably Bernard, because just of all the fucking layers to these guys, right? Now, when it comes to Charlotte Hale, I'm not entirely sure that she's not working with Ford, because it's almost like she keeps setting him up and then Ford just knocks him down. She put Teresa in a very compromising position. Teresa got caught, she got killed.
Bye, Felicia.
Now she's gotten Lee, and she's put Lee down in cold storage to try and get Abernathy out of the park. And she left him down there in cold storage with all of the other, like, Autobots. And I don't know, it seems like she's in it, because on the one hand, where it did seem in the scene between Bernard and Stubbs and Ford and Charlotte or I don't think Bernard was actually there. But anyway, it did seem that there was kind of this like cat and mouse game that he was playing with Charlotte. On the other hand, we know that these bots have like an explosive in one of their vertebrae, and so it may be that that she's trying to put Abernathy on the train out of WestWorld so that the train will explode and there's no way in and out of WestWorld. Like, everybody will be trapped. I mean, with all of the technology that they've got around there, I don't know how long it would take to repair a train, but with the board members coming, it would be a perfect way to keep them in the park if they wanted to get rid of them. So that's something to chew on. I'm not sure that Hale isn't just setting up the humans who have like a real stake in the game, in the goings on of the park, just so that Ford can undermine them and use them to his advantage. So that's something to look out for, and I'm just really enjoying what they're doing with Charlotte, because I never know how to read her, and that's good storytelling in this kind of narrative. And you know, I totally thought that they were going to replace Teresa with the bot that they were making down in the Let's Kill Teresa shed. So that didn't happen, and I was kind of surprised by that, but at the same time, I'm wondering, who are they making down there? Because it's off the books, and so that's something to look out for. Maybe Robert is building himself a new body. I don't know. Like, they were building somebody down there, and I'm interested to see who.
You know nothing.
And really, my major thought for this episode is, again, how biological in nature are these androids? Because, I mean, we've got the blood, we've got the very physical nature of them, and the fact that they are so almost low-tech. I mean, when you look at the old bots, they had all of these very mechanical parts to them, that like their faces open up and all of this stuff, and Maeve alludes to the fact that she does have these older parts within her. And my thing is, these new androids, they're just not completely robotic. They seem to be very fleshy, and I'm pretty sure that Jonathan Nolan has said, yeah, they're like pretty biological. And so I haven't looked into that myself, but I have heard other reviewers and podcasters mention that. And so the fascinating thing about this is you have humans creating robots, right? And then we have robots creating robots. That's what Bernard was created to do, to engineer like more emotional and complex androids. And so if they are in fact biological in nature, then we've gone from humans creating robots to robots creating robots to now robots manufacturing humans, and that is fucked up and fascinating. And the implications of that, of artificial intelligence being a more perfect kind of intelligence, and then creating biological intelligence to be on par with it. I'm loving that idea, and I really hope that that's not what's going on, because it's super sadistic and slavery and all this extra. But again, the ideas of this show are so profound and so human at the end of the day. Like, we're always questioning the nature of our own reality. Like, that's part of being a person, and that should have been Bernard's dead giveaway. Like, again, do you ever fucking question the nature of your reality, Bernard? And so the central concepts of the show are so profound and human in themselves, in that, what does it mean to love? What does it mean to emote? What does it mean to live? What is reality? And in this episode, we have Maeve asking, who is Arnold? Like, the idea to question God, to think of the idea of God is so very human. And what the show does is it continues to blur the line between reality, humanity, android, intelligence, the soul. What is that? Where do you get it? Where does it go? Does it go anywhere? Is it infinite? And I'm just super excited to see our last 2 episodes of the season. So please, Planet Earth, let me know what you thought of Trace Decay in the comment section down below. I'm Preston L. Young. Hope you're having a great 2016 so far, everybody. If you're in the US, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving holiday this past week. So like, comment, share, subscribe, and as always, question. Have yourself a great day today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Pills? You mean you really are taking drugs?
I need them.
Jesse, give me those.
I need them, Zach. I have to sing.
Jesse, you can't sing tonight.
Yes, I can. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so scared.
Jesse.
I do believe in spooks. 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 I do.
I knew how this would be settled in the animal world. But this was Girl World.
Think of it as a game. A fun, funny game. Without all the rules, or any of the bothersome winning part. But still, there are sides. You have to choose a side.
My BFF.
Joe?
730.
We all know that the wind blows and the moon glows and our lungs grow. We belong to the floating hand that's made by some animals, and we all dance so we can let go and remove clothes and trade loads, like the type of tongue that roots from your breast and it shakes your pretty little clavicle. A good friend is walking to a homeland, an inside land. And to him I said, you can't leave your eyes at the horizon's dead door, 'cause you won't need them anymore. The children, da-da-da-da-dum, spend the dawn in, da-da-da-da-dum, in the morning, da-da-da-da-da, disappearing. They reappeared as a seed of love. You know, the earth births the vegetables. We all know. We all know.